You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome to everyone who's joining us as a live stream. Justin is going to try to join us later. For those who did not join us a year ago, the whole point of this is it feels like the MLB Draft isn't always the best covered. Last year, the MLB Draft Lottery felt like the focus was more on a musical act than on the top players available and what was going on. So this year, we thought we'd continue on, and I'm hoping have the same level of interest and interactions. So, please make sure if you have any questions or comments, post them so I can see them and respond to them. I should have gone and scrolling through here. Let me get the banner running across for this show that shows the projected pick order as of now. Only the top 18 is going to change. It's a little bit different than a year ago, or a lot different if you're, a Guardians fan. But in particular, a year ago, we had the Mets, the Yankees, and the Padres, who were all in the lottery, I believe, and all had spent over competitive balance. So not only did we have the whole discussion about whether or not, these teams are moving up, but what teams were going to fall and why they were going to fall due to those competitive balance rules. So until Justin gets here, please ask questions. If there's confusion, if you want to know why the White Sox are 10th and Oakland is at 11, I'll answer that. If you want to know what odds are, I have those pulled up. If you want to know about players, I have that too. So, I'm here to provide information, reaction, and watch as this all unfolds tonight here on, MLB.com is where they're showing it. I'm here to provide the information that MLB does not. So, just want to start out by, again, thanking everyone who showed up. And, again, question away. A lot of this is going to be driven by these picks as they happen, when they get laid out, and also just general questions. This year's draft, right now, if I compare it to last year's, is not as good. And if we've been talking about since about 2021, each draft has been a little less impressive than the last. It's because we hit such a high watermark post that 2020 low round draft. Like some of those drafts there, a lot of players got to college that wouldn't have normally. And, because of that, those drafts are absolutely loaded. This one definitely doesn't feel as strong at the top to me. I do think there's a chance for better depth, though. So that's going to certainly be something to watch. And I'm seeing some comments here. So I'm going to go over to that from Craig Ticola, who's the number one player right now. Most people are going to say Ethan Holiday. I don't feel like I'm necessarily there with Ethan Holiday. Just because I think that when you look at the data, you have a better chance. I went through and did all the numbers. You have oh man, that kind of stinks. Seeing Jim told me they're representing the White Sox. But when you're looking at the average value of the chance of hitting on a star is higher for a college player than it is to hit on just an everyday player. For a prep player, the risk is so much higher. You're dealing with a situation where you have a better chance of finding a star type player than you have of finding just an everyday guy. So I kind of think that what you're looking at in this draft right now, with the college group not being as great as a year ago, I think you have to debate Holiday. Chase LaViolette, he's got to cut down on K rate. There's almost no one who's been consistently successful who had a very high college K rate. His was too high. We got to see if we can cut that back. That's one of those great indicator stats. So I'm probably leaning towards Bremer or Jamie Arnold, the two pitchers. It's definitely a year where that is the college pitching is more the strength than the college bats. But there's always a chance for players to emerge, right? A year ago at this time, I was looking at Charlie Condon as a back of the top 10 pick. So plenty of time. So I forgot I can just click on these. Bodine has dropped. I don't know who's really dropping right now. It's a matter of like limited. Caden Bodine from Coastal Carolina. I think he'll be there for Cleveland. There's a lot of positives to him. Just in terms of good arm, switch hitter, does a lot of things well. I don't know if there's anything that's super exciting, which is fine at the back of the first round. I do think that he will be available, and I know he hit for a little more power on the Cape. Coastal Carolina has had some problems with guys super well transitioning, but Bodine did have the highest batting average in the Cape this past year. So Cleveland loves that, and he doesn't strike out a lot, which we know again, Cleveland loves that. I don't know if there's a world where you can wait to give him the second round. Maybe you consider him in the first. It's just he has a solid arm. There's stuff there there's a beginner set. So yes, I think he can stay and catch. And then from B Suddy, not about the draft, wants to know what a Taylor Ward gets done. Arias, I talk about this all the time. They don't want your filler. Throwing in two bottom of the lineup guys, they don't like. Arias and J-Rod aren't starting for them, so they don't care. I don't want to trade Ralphie or Janelle for him. That's too much. So maybe it's Wellbin, but I also don't think that's what they want. I think if they're moving Ward, you look at their other moves, they're going to want pieces that can help now. And this team doesn't have a lot of that. It's like, are you willing to trade Gaddis for Ward? Because it might cost something like that. I just don't think that a trade like that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, definitely keep the comments flowing just so we have more to talk about. Well, this broadcast goes to commercial break time and time again. I think what's going to be interesting in this class is the high school grouping. For those who are not paying a ton of close attention, Corona, California has 3 potential top 20 players, and Brady Abel, and we have Billy Carlson, and then the big name is Seth Hernandez, who could end up being the top pitcher in this class. That has never happened. We have never had a right-handed high school player go number 1 overall. It's just something that never, ever happens. Back when Lucas Giolito, before he got hurt, was a player who was talked about for that potentially. He got hurt, so it didn't happen. We really haven't. There's been points where people talked about with Kumar Rocker and with Ethan Hankins. I'll be curious to see what happens with Hernandez at this point in time. Oh, things are coming out. We're gonna get some information here finally. Getting the cards brought out, so we're gonna see. I have the projected order at the bottom, so we can see if anything changes. The first 5, it should be Diamondbacks at 18, 17 Seattle. After that is the Cubs, the Cardinals, Twins. Those should be the first 5 selections. They're just showing these. If you remember a year ago, Cleveland, actually the first time the draft occurred a year ago, Cleveland didn't win. It went to the Nationals, who couldn't win because of the new competitive balance rules. So Arizona at 18, that is according to the script. Nothing has changed there. Arizona has the 18th overall pick. So they got the White Sox at 17 and 8 in the Athletics at 18, but that's not really true on this broadcast. I don't know why they have them there, because they're going to pick 10th and 11th. So that's one of those that isn't quite there. Cubs at 17. So that means Seattle is moving on up. Seattle not being there. So we have our first move. Seattle has jumped in this one. That is interesting. That is very low percentages. So Seattle jumping up in the draft, much to the chagrin of Cubs fans who just fell back. And St. Louis has jumped, right? Now St. Louis should have been there too. Do we have St. Louis and do we have two of these late teams jump too? So this is already getting crazy. Because by my recollection on it, Seattle and this is getting nuts. If you're moving into the top 6. So if you're moving up, you are moving into the top 6 at this point. We have Tampa here. I had Tampa. Of course, I got the slow moving graphic here. Tampa is falling back 2. Like all of these teams have essentially fallen back 2 spots. And it really hurts San Francisco. It's a huge drop for San Francisco because 10 and 11 can't change. San Francisco is supposed to pick 9th. Instead, they're picking 12th. So that means that these teams have just, with this, San Francisco takes a huge drop. 9 to 13, I'm sorry. Texas, because all of the teams that were picking before, because the White Sox and Oakland are 10th and 11th. They can't pick in the top 10 again. So all those teams are projected to pick right above them. With these big jumps, they have to fall back 3 spots. So that is big in terms of it. And Oakland, we knew was 11. 10 is going to be the White Sox. Like that just, they really can't move. It would take rather huge stuff for them to move. But yeah, we got the Cardinals and Mariners at least in the top 6. That's pretty nuts, though. Those are 2 huge. The odds of those teams that went up were both under 1%. At least of them getting the number 1 overall pick, I should say. Yeah, there's I see a few questions in here. I don't think they can really trade for one of the Mariners' arms because they're not going to want to trade their good ones. Reds at 9. So the Reds have fallen back 3 as well. Or no, they were 7, so they've fallen back 2. That's a big hit for them. Toronto also has fallen back in this one. So that means the Pirates have moved up. So we have the Pirates and having some problems with the sign here. Miami Marlins, huge drop. They were projected from the 2nd pick. Wow. So they went from 2nd to 7. I mean, they were like, that's kind of nuts. That is a big drop. Wow. So you got the Rockies, the Angels, the Nationals, the Pirates, the Cardinals, and the Mariners. This is a nutso event. I mean, we talk about the odds of this happening. The Rockies are still the favorites, but the Cardinals and the Mariners, those 2 teams who, were the cusp of it, but man, they're so close, especially the Mariners, like a chance. I mean, I look at this year's draft and I'm looking at this of, if you're Seattle, it's going to be interesting how this all falls. It's like, do they go for closer help? It's, what are they looking at here? Maybe I will, since Justin couldn't join me this evening, maybe I'll do an impromptu mock in the middle of this. How do you know we have a pick that high? We know because we know what the projected picks are. And as they showed us who has been taken, we know who is left. The top 6 are the picks that are in the lottery. So any of these picks could be in play. We know that since Pittsburgh was not in their spots, it's the Cardinals, and that the Mariners were not in their spots, that all 3 teams have moved up into the top 6. We don't know where in the top 6. This was, if you're talking about my order, this was the projected order when the night began. So you can kind of look at the scroll beneath me and see, oh, like the Pirates are projected to be 7th. They're not. They might have only moved up to 6. We'll have to see. But we know that the Pirates have not, are not staying in the top 6. We know that we know the Pirates have moved in the top 6. We know the Marlins have fallen out of the top 6, and that the Marlins had the same odds as the Rockies. So this is interesting. It's a little bit crazier than last year, because last year, Cleveland jumped, but they had the 9th pick. Or was it the 8th pick? Either way, they had a pretty solid. They were a top 10 pick who moved up. The Reds were a little bit more off the board. The Twins had a pretty big jump. We've seen so far in 3 years of the lottery, some bigger jumps here than we ever see in the NBA, it feels like. But this is definitely a bit nuts right now, just in terms of expectation and what is occurring. So right now, I think the big name in this draft, I don't know, is Ethan Holiday. We know the family. We know the player. We know my younger brother theory. If you don't know it, I find that younger brothers tend to outperform older brothers. So he's probably right now your odds-on favorite for first overall. I just have issues with it's not issues with high school kids. I just know they're not as successful. Dennis, I have it muted with closed captioning on just so I can figure out what's going on. But the lottery, they always do really weird presentation. That's why I try to do this. I was hoping for better numbers. I won't lie. Our numbers were certainly stronger a year ago. So, tell other people to join in right now. And Brock, hey, I'm glad I could help you out and explain it. It is a weird system. And that's why I do this, to try to explain and make it an understandable situation right now, because it's hard to understand the draft. There's so many weird rules. There's so many little components and parts to it. And Colton Cowser at 6. Let's see who we got here. It's Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh moved up one spot. So sugar plums to, hey, at least they didn't fall back, right? Like, one spot's better than nothing. But this is kind of, it's getting interesting. That much we know for sure. Colorado and Los Angeles, I believe, had the highest odds with Miami, and they're still there. At 5, we've got St. Louis. So Seattle has a top 4 pick. St. Louis with a top 5 selection. That's, I believe, they were 6th a year ago with JJ Weatherholt, which was a nice selection for them. But Seattle's got a top 4 pick. So we got to see what we got now. We got the 3 teams and the Mariners. Colorado, 4th overall. It means the Mariners have a top 3 selection. Colorado were considered even though Colorado, the Angels, and Miami all had the same odds, like all 3 at 22%. So the Rockies have slid to 4th. They're picking lower than a year ago. Seattle moves all the way up to 3rd. That is, I mean, you got to be happy if you're a Mariners fan. It's a top 3 pick when you were projected to pick 17th. Top 3 pick. You were supposed to have the 17th. They moved up 14 slots, which is not just about moving up 14 slots. That's also the huge amount of pool money they've gained. Seattle is going to have a lot of money to play with in this draft. I'll pull up last year. Good call, Brock. I think the Cardinals are the only team who have never picked 1st or 2nd in the MLB draft. They're the only team that have never had a top 2 selection in the MLB draft. I'm just pulling up last year's draft tracker to discuss the difference between going from 17 to 3rd overall. So last year, slot at 17 was approximately 3.4 million. Slot at 3 is 9.25 million. You're talking about a $6 million difference in slot. I mean, that is almost as big as the pick itself. And here we go. Who's 2nd overall? The Angels, the Nationals. So you can almost put it on the board right now, Ethan Holiday. That's going to be an easy one to do. Just because the history of them with the draft is liking prep talent, liking bloodlines, liking everything else. So I think you can, it's last year I predicted correctly the number 1 overall pick on the day of the draft lotto. I said it'd be Travis Mazzana, that he was everything you would think the Guardians have traditionally liked. Ethan Holiday, honestly, is traditionally everything the Nationals have liked. It's a pretty good chance that it's going to be him. Let's do a quick, fun, impromptu mock. I'm just going to turn off my stream here because there's not much more to it outside of knowing the Fried to the Yankees dropped in the middle of this. So Fried to the Yankees effect on the draft. Fried, since we're doing draft stuff, Fried to the Yankees effect on the draft is the Yankees will lose their second and fifth rounders. And I believe the Braves will then get it's in that weird in-between round. They don't get a second rounder. So they get like trying to remember if it's after the third round or if it's after the second round. Either way, the if you were a team, it doesn't give a lot for teams, right? Because where that second round pick is going to disappear from, and where I believe the compensation pick will come after competitive balance picks, it's about a 10 pick range. So the second round pick going for the Yankees actually won't affect the draft too much in the grand scheme. But for the Yankees, I mean, their pitching had some question marks. I am curious now to see what the Yankees do in terms of, do they look to trade some pitching? We've all read at points that Nestor Cortez is someone they might consider moving. So if you're a team who needs pitching, all of a sudden, New York is kind of interesting. But let's do, since I have you all here, I'm just going to do my first mock. I'm going to do it right here, okay? So I'm going to talk about it and post it as we're going. Since people like mocks, let's just do it this way. So I make sure I have names in front of me because of my being someone who's dyslexic and my problems with spelling. That is just asking for issues. So if you all just give me 1 second, I apologize. So right now, I think Holiday, to, man, if I could spell, it'd be really nice. So I think one is Holiday. So let's see what do we got here. I don't think the Guardians have any chance of Sasaki. It should be exciting. It's nice to move up, and they had their jump. Let's see, they went from the Cardinals were supposed to be 14th or 15th. I got my little handy dandy. That's why I programmed this. They were supposed to be 15th, so they went from 15th to 5th. I don't know why I got lots. So 15th overall pick was 4.88. They got $8 million, so they almost doubled their slot value. They have almost twice as much money to spend. So I understand excitement if you are a fan of the Rockies, the Cardinals, Brock. I don't think Jay's number one. If he doesn't cut down on his K rate, he's going to be this year's Brandon Montgomery. That's just the truth of the matter. People talk about Montgomery won, and then he slid out of the top 10. K rate guys don't succeed with high percentage K rates. They just don't. I like him a lot. If he can show improvement, then he will definitely move into that conversation. But specifically for that team, for the Washington Nationals, they have been more prep and batted ball heavy than any other team. So I think it's Holiday. I think you put Holiday on the board there and you forget about it. At 2, the Angels. Hey, the Angels like small school guys, like not big names. Tyler Bremer, I would think is the guy there that some people think is the best pitcher in this class. UC Santa Barbara pitcher. He's, let's see, he won't turn 21 until April. He's got a 3-pitch mix. He's really good. I'm excited to see what he can do this year, but I think Tyler Bremner, I should say, is the traditional guy there. Hey, there'll be someone from the SEC that steps up this year. There's some guys I like. That's interesting. I was just looking at MLBs for the first time, and I didn't expect Max. I didn't expect someone from Texas in there. Merrick Houston's probably the other guy who I would say is the Ike Irish are the big kind of. And Ethan Conrad, the transfer. Those are your SEC guys I would focus on. So is slot you get a total pool. So every pick has a slot value, and those all come together to make a pool. From that pool, you can spend, if you spend your whole pool, great. If you spend less, great. No effect. For every dollar over that you take, that you spend, up to 5%, you have to basically pay a 1-for-1 fee on that. So you're paying a penalty. If you go over 5%, then you lose a first round pick. So that's how that works. So it's always spend up to like a penny less than 5%, so you don't lose your first round pick. See, but the thing with them is, yeah, they took Christian Moore this year, but they've like kind of smaller school guys. And I also don't think Jace is the closest guy because of the swing and miss issues. And they don't take swing and miss guys. Like Christian Moore had some chase, but he did not have swing and miss. They don't take K rate guys. Yeah, you should be excited. I mean, Cardinals and Mariners fans should be very excited. Like Pittsburgh fans, it's maybe a bit of a tease to go from 7 to 6, but like Cardinals and Mariners fans should be over the moon right now. So I think, like I said, I think Bremner 2. Then see, the problem. I should probably be looking also just at the Tankathon update theirs, so I can actually look at what the correct order is. Our third overall pick is Seattle. And that's okay. This gets interesting. Seattle, I'm trying to remember who Seattle took last year. They were the most conservative team until they were not a conservative team. I gotta look. I'll give you some guys as we get closer. Tyler, I've got a few names I like, but it's a bit early for me to really dig in the weeds that much. Seattle then took all those high school kids, and then, well, I've got the draft checker here. Why am I opening? I hate having tabs open. So last year, Seattle took Syngente. That's right. I forgot they added him. So they're in a perfect situation, honestly. If you're Seattle, you love to draft pitching. My number one player is probably Jamie Arnold. I really like the Florida left-hander. I think he's really good. Seattle and I tend to agree on a lot of areas. So I think I would actually have Jamie Arnold going 3 to Seattle. Now, I know that's not what Seattle fans maybe want. They probably want to hear someone more, a bat. But I think Jamie Arnold is a really good prospect. There were a lot of points this year where I thought if he was available in the 2024 draft, he would have been the first pitcher off the board. Like I really felt that would have been the case. That he would have gone higher than Chase Burns. He's a really good lefty. So then you got Colorado fell to 4, and here we go. They like big power. We got Lavalette still sitting there, right? So I think Lavalette makes sense to Colorado, gives them a big center fielder, some power. There's not a lot of power at the top of this class, and how much do you trust them to go with, a prep talent? I think Lavalette to Colorado, if it's at that point. See, but it's not about need. You never draft for need. Never, ever, ever draft for need. But teams have profiles that they're successful with or things they look at. And you want to look at how they traditionally draft. Like some teams prefer, certain positions. Some teams look at up the middle. Some teams look at K rate. Some teams look at chase rate. Some teams look at Cape Cod success. I am never, ever, ever advising best need. Never do need, but best player available, you should always do it. To me, it would be Jamie Arnold. But they also have been just so focused on taking pitching that you got a guy who I think is arguably the top player in the class, who's a really good lefty. But did I say the wrong thing? FSU, not Florida. Smokey Gator, what did I misspeak on in terms of FSU and Florida? Oh, did I say that Jamie Arnold was Florida, not Florida State? That's probably what it was. Yeah, Florida State, if I misspoke. Him and Cam Leiter, yes, of that Leiter clan, are really fun arms at Florida State to check out this year. So I apologize if I misspoke. That is on me. Best and worst depth position for this year's draft. I think, I don't know if I want to say depth. It feels like power hitters are kind of lacking right now in this class. We had a lot of guys with really good power in last year's class with some elite exit velocities. We're not seeing as much of that this year. The other side of things, I feel like the college pitching depth is pretty decent. There's a lot of interesting players. I feel like the prep the prep hitter group is pretty deep. And I feel like last year that group kind of fell off. So I think it's there. I think what this class is lacking is kind of sizzle. It's lacking that kind of elite ceiling type. And it's got a lot more just solid depth throughout. Like, I'm definitely glad Cleveland picked top 5 last year, not this year. But I think this is a year where it's good to have a ton of picks. Now, if you moved up, don't feel bad. It's still a good draft, don't get me wrong. This is not like, and I'll go back to the year that Jackson Holiday went first overall. Like, that year was viewed very negatively. That year, people forget Jackson Holiday was not the slam dunk first overall pick. Even on draft day, there were people who had Brooks Lee. Vegas at the start of the day had Brooks Lee being the top player in that, or likely to go first overall. Still a good class, but there's just a lot more warts or question marks right now at the top of the draft than years past. Wait, did a trade just happen? Sorry, everyone, as I'm sitting here doing this. I'm just trying to see what Justin just texted me about something, and I'm trying to see what he is. Andres Gimenez is being traded from Cleveland to the Toronto Blue Jays. That is interesting. Here's the thing with his contract is completely underwater, so I'm curious to see what this return is. But Guardians fans, this is it's getting interesting. So when there might be turnover at the top, a lot of times there's things that stay, but then you can also look at who's coming in and seeing where they come from and knowing. Toronto getting number 1 at Miami being 7. I don't think Holiday has any chance to fall to 7. Lavalette, here's the thing. Honestly, he's going to go top 5, or he's not going to improve his K rate, and it's going to be he is this year's honeycut. Like, and I kind of brought that up at the start. Like that's just the kind of breakdown with it. He's honeycut. He's either going to be really good or he's going to not be. Hey, yeah, Smokey Gator's right. Live show brings craziness. I'm just going to text Justin to let him know I'm still live if he wants to jump in, and we can always move with it. But yeah, curious to see what's happening. I mean, I know I got to get back to the mock because I promised I'd do that. This is going to be interesting. Jimenez's contract is awful. He's going to be owed 3 years of $23 million or more. And, when you're looking at that type of money and a guy with 3 years of regression, like, I appreciate everything he's done, but offensively it was going bad to worse. And I don't have any problem getting out from that contract before it turns into a sinkhole. And hey, maybe it opens up Cleveland to do a little bit more. I'm curious to see return. I don't think it's going to be much. I honestly don't think it's going to be much. Bloom liked shortstops. He liked up the middle types. Also a Cleveland thing. They just added Rob Cifolio from Cleveland's front office to work with him with the Cardinals. So I'm almost to the Cardinals pick, but Kason Cunningham would make a lot of sense at that pick, as would Aviva Arquette from Oregon State. I think Arquette's one of those guys that you should keep an eye on, though. Xavier Nans is probably the best college player I still have there. I'm just going to throw a tweet out saying I'm still live, so people who want to come can come and discuss this. 1 second. Because I feel like people might want to jump in. But yeah, I guess no matter what happens, the MLB Draft live stream. I'm sorry, I had to laugh at the person being like, stop supporting this team because they trade proven talent. It's like Jimenez's data was really bad the last 2 years, like offensively. I get the defense. So why would they do this? The contract isn't great. He was a below average bat. He's a great defender. We have to see what the return is. I'm curious about that. But they also have Bazana, who they believe in, coming up. They also have, a glut of infielders they can try at that position. Juan Brito is, hit at every single level. He's not really much of a second baseman, but I mean, the show me you're not watching by watching is I don't understand people's upsetness. I don't. Like, I get it. Yeah, he won Gold Gloves, but that's like all he was doing. Can someone in chat, does a Guardians fan want to explain to me why I am wrong? Why that Jimenez is not a big deal to lose? Like, it just feels to me like so I messed it up. I want to point out one mistake I made. I was looking at signing and not slot value. So Seattle, their gain was actually from 17 was 4.53 to 9.5. So that's, it's closer to 5 million. It's still great. Yeah, like this is the thing. Do you really want to pay Andres Gimenez $23 million for 3 years in a row? Unfortunately, it's already over. It was over as it occurred. It was on MLB.com or the MLB app. It's a little bit craziness right now because I got sidelined. I was trying to do a mock and it went away because of everything else just happening right now with this trade breaking in the middle of me talking about the draft, and Max Fried signing and the Guardians trading Andres Gimenez. I am very intrigued to see. I don't think they're going to get anything, but I know we're sitting here with our poor Cardinals fan who's been a great part of this chat, being like, "You've stopped right at my pick." This is a great tweet by Bryce, which is Bryce Patrick of Locked On Rangers. Why does Toronto need another elite glove who can't hit when they have Varsho? It's like, that's true. Like, I wanted Jimenez to be a thing, and he has regressed the last 3 years. I don't understand some of the logic that is, or the upsetness with this move. I mean, here's the thing. Bazana, probably, this isn't what people are going to hear, but I think there's a degree of slow paying him in 25, coming up maybe towards the end of 25, preserving his eligibility. Because if he debuts in 26, it's not about cheapness. It's, hey, maybe you can help us towards the tail end of 25, remain rookie eligible, put on a display, and then be eligible to earn them a draft pick. Here's the thing with Jimenez. It's not a salary dump for this year. It's a salary dump for the future because it was going to handcuff. No, it was going to handcuff this franchise for a lot of years to come. And again, 81 RBAT plus, like an 82 OPS plus. He was a bad hitter. I get the defense. Like, he was spectacular. He is one of the best who has ever played second base in my lifetime. But his similar batters, like Ray Durham is top, there. Chris Owens, remember him? Amet Rosario, Tadahito Iguchi, like Kyle Farmer. You can go out and get Brendan Rodgers, who might rebound, who was a Gold Glove second baseman at a quarter of the price, who has some power potential. Like I like Brendan Rodgers was my top player in that draft class. Like there's a world where they then rotate to Rodgers. My only concern with Brito, I see a lot of people saying Brito, is that he's a really poor defender. I talk about highs and lows. Like it's crazy. So I think this is just removing the current money situation, kind of flipping it. He was going to make 10.5 million this year. So that's 10.5 million off the books. And then he was going to make 15 million, then 23 and 23. Like that is a lot. That is a lot. That is just, for what he is, that's going to get you just not productive. I think they're going to probably get nothing for him. I think it was a contract to underwater, but we'll see. That's 100% my view on this. Is it's an underwater contract and you get similar things. Like I said, Brendan Rodgers could be a guy. Yeah, I would like him too. Smokey, you and I agree again. The thing with Rodgers is he had a bad year, but always bet on guys being better when they leave Colorado, right? Like that is a rough situation in Colorado. And he did, like I said, he did have a Gold Glove there, I believe. Wasn't he a Gold Glove winner when he was healthy? And okay, so I had Bregman 2 in his draft class. I had Rodgers 1. I had Dansby lower. I was right on Bregman, was not right on Rodgers. I was low on Kyle Tucker that year because because it was my cardinal sin. I got tired of everyone saying how pretty the swing was. I don't like evaluating players based on how pretty a swing looks. That is a personal thing. So yeah, it's so much money. For those who didn't know, the exact numbers for the next few years on Jimenez were 10 million this year, 15 million the year after that, and then 23 million, 23 million, 23 million. So quick math, that's 69 million, 79 million, 89 million. He was owed like 94 million, and that's not counting the little bit. So he's probably owed, closer to like 97 million. So that's 97 million off your books. And it just hasn't worked. It just hasn't worked. I'm sorry, it hasn't. I'm very curious to see what it's going to be now, who they're going to do, but we also know, yeah. But what's else to deal with in the middle of the lottery? You get Max Fried signed and the Guardians training Jimenez. Yeah. Like I said, I would just slow this down because Juan Brito's defense at second base is bad. It's not great. Like I think Juan Brito's position is DH. To go from Jimenez to Brito, the pitchers might revolt on this team. So I don't know if he is the guy there. I don't know if they have the guy currently ready to play this year. But there's a world. We had someone in our comments who wanted to help us make merch, and apparently I make that statement a ton. There is a world. But there is a world where you give a Rodgers a try, a la the Zunino type of deal, a la the other ones that have not necessarily always work, but sometimes they do. If you go back and listen to yesterday's show, we're talking about the greatest free agents in the history of this franchise. And they're all guys that were hurt, guys that were older, or guys coming off bad seasons. That's where this team actually does well. So you sign a Rodgers, if he's great, then you might still have years of control, or you could flip him and you can still have Bazzano ready to go there. So this is fascinating. Or maybe I don't think they're going to shoot the moon and have Travis up to start the year. I do think this all sets up for Bazzano very specifically to play late in the year and do that. I don't know. We always hear about swing changes. I got to see him do it at the big league level. And I think if the team bought into his swing changes, we would have seen him. We didn't see him for a reason. I think they didn't buy in fully to the swing changes. We don't know what they've gotten back yet. I mean, he needs to be close to Alomar. I mean, $23 million is a ton of money. So my original math this offseason had this team at about $20 million in savings. Bieber knocked him down 10. This gives them another 10 up. Now, if you consider the fact that their draft budget should be half as much, that could be another 10 million that they have in total operating. Now, don't know about TV money. TV money is going to be a poop show for them, but I'm very curious to see where it goes for there. I liked Ricky Tiedemann quite a bit in his draft years. I know he is down a bit in value. I don't know if they could get him. Again, I feel like this is a situation where you're getting anything just because of the money and because of the contract. And I see a lot of people saying the 23, I mean, they already allocated some of that money. Hate to break it to you. That was, what do you think the Bieber signing was? If you mean Kyle Tucker, no. I do not. They're not going to trade for a rental. That's just not their MO. I think honestly, they're not. The return here is likely to be small. Like, I'm going to wait to be surprised, but I don't think this return is going to be interesting. And I mean, Jimenez, like, our bat is essentially a Baseball Reference version of weighted runs created plus, which takes everything, boils it down to 100 as a league average player offensively. As a rookie, it was limited. So it was 132 plate appearances. But if you then skip that, you go to that first year he was in Cleveland, he was a 74. Not great. A 141 in his all-star year. Utterly fantastic. Then a 98 and 23 and an 82 this year. Value is his offensive production has been going down, and it's just a hard situation because of that. His power is really gone away the past few years. He's had dropping power. I just don't think there's much. Toronto's running a gamble here on defense. I don't know what Toronto's whole situation is in terms of like what they're going to do at second base. Apparently they just wanted more defense. But I'm kind of fascinated to see. It's like, who were they running out there at second base a year ago? That's my question right now. Because there's just no hit in that bat. I guess they weren't running anyone out. So it's going to be the curiosity that, they're running Ernie Clement at third and Will Wagner was their second baseman because Davis Snyder imploded. That's right. I forgot about that. So they're making a trade to get defense and get stability. And Cleveland is realizing that this is another failed extension and that they were just kind of trying to get out from this extension before it ballooned. Those balloon payments are coming. I mean, I see all these people saying like, oh, you can't, doesn't defense mean anything? Is anyone out there paying? No one pays for defense. They pay for offense. And if you have defense, that gets you more. No one pays for defense. Let's be very honest about that. No one is going out and signing a player because of their defensive value, except for maybe catcher. Like Austin Hedges was the best defensive catcher in baseball. And he got at his peak, and he got like $6 million. No one pays for defense. Like, it's very weird Thanks, George, for joining us. It's very weird that people, this is the thing though, like no matter what happens, there's always people who complain. And in this weird situation, it's like people are complaining so hard about this. And it's like, okay, fair, Jordan. But even here, like Jason Hayward, when he was signed to that huge contract, had really good offense. It just regressed. You're signing a player for what they do offensively, and then the defense gets you more. I mean, that's baseball, right? Like, remember, like Cesar Hernandez winning the Gold Glove at second base for this team, and then no one signing him. Like, it just bottom line, you don't pay for defense. I don't care how good the defense is. No one pays for defense. Jacob Stallings, he keeps finding jobs because these are catchers, but it's like, Brendan Rodgers won a Gold Glove, and after an injury is out of a job. It's just there's not a lot. I mean, I'm gonna go look at outs above average for second base, just out of curiosity. Jacob Young. Oh, this is not by position. I got to change position. View. Nope. Position. Second base. Yeah, like he had the most outs above average in baseball. Don't get me wrong. Like elite of the elite when it comes to defense in baseball. Otto Lopez of the Marlins was third best. Marcus Semien second. Nico Horner 4. I mean, they've had talks about Nico Horner in the past. There's a world where they might try to get Nico Horner now to play second. And, you know, I know for a fact that they have talked about Nico Horner in the past. You know, the Cubs are trying to do things. Like, I'm just going to throw that out there. I know in the past there's been interest in Nico Horner. Sorry, the Cubs are trying to move off of some salary. Horner makes a lot, but there's a logic to that. And I got to look at his contract. But Horner is another elite defensive second baseman. I don't know why. Like, again, he wasn't any good. Nico does have a big contract too. I don't think it's quite as big as So Horner's big contract is, like I said, Jimenez was owned $97 million about. Actually, I can tell you the exact amount. I don't know why I'm trying to do quick math and estimation. Baseball Reference will tell me. Oh, well, I mean, I'm pretty good at quick math. $96.9 million owed for Andres Gimenez. And at the same time, Nico Horner is owed 23.5. He makes 11.5 and 12. So he makes, I mean, we didn't have a second baseman who could hit. Jimenez's data was going down. Like, again, elite defender, but that bat doesn't play at all. Like, he should be your ninth hitter. He has gotten worse every year. There's no power. I love the defense, but I'm going to state what I said multiple times in this very same chat. You don't pay for defense. No one pays for defense. You pay for guys who can hit, who also have a great defense, but nobody pays for defense. And look at the team right now. They went out and trade for Lane Thomas, not a great defender by a lot of metrics. Josh Naylor at first base, bad defender by a lot of metrics. Rokio, a very good defender. Jose saw some slippage. Quan, excellent. Bo has some things he's great at, some things he's terrible at. I got to be honest. I don't think this return is going to be anything. That was an underwater contract. It was not a good contract. When you are 20% worse than the league average, you can't pay that guy $23 million. So this was an opportunity to get out from under him. No, Quan isn't signing. It's time to move on. I mean, the Lindor trade is the Lindor trade. They found success with it. They weren't going to pay Lindor what he wanted, and this team, the small market team, never could. So it's a fine trade. It worked out well enough. They got they traded 1 year of a dude and got 3 years out of, 3 years out of Andres and 3 out of Ahmed, like 3 solid production years, 6 total years for 1 year. It's probably worth it, especially because the team wasn't set to contend that next year. Agreed. Pay Tanner. Like, he's the guy to pay. 100%. He's the one to go out and get done. I just don't think that he can. He's not good defensively. Like, I just don't know how you can go to Juan when you don't trust the defense. No, because they have nothing at catcher. They can't trade Bo. There's no catching in the system, and no one who's really coming. Like I said, Cody Huff is a big sleeper for me in the system, but they don't have a catcher. So Bo is here to stay. Absolutely, sign me up. Why not? I don't think they are, because I think if they bought into him, if they bought into Arias fully, I think we would have seen him back up. I think they would have called him up. So I think it's not a one. No, I am as well. 100%. Manzardo is ready for a full-time role with this team. I mean, it's interesting. I've talked about it on the show. It's like Rocchio we called him the nutty professor, because he would make those elite plays and then just make some boneheaded ones and a lot of inconsistencies. He's a rookie though. Like, I'm not the biggest Rocchio supporter, but I think we need to give him a chance to show consistency. If the season, I feel like I'm getting a lot of points. If the season started today, I feel like the second baseman, I don't know who would be. I feel like the second baseman for this team is currently not on the roster. If I'm being honest, I feel like whoever their second baseman is someone who's not here. Kozar is a fine defender. I don't think he's going to hit enough to be a full-time guy. There's this. It's a good call. I mean, for whatever reason, I keep forgetting Angel Martinez. Second base is probably his natural position. Okay, so who's their second baseman right now? It's Angel Martinez. Thank you, Force Man. I totally blanked on this. It's Martinez should be the guy. Like, at least there's some ceiling there. There's some bits and pieces. I think it's more Martinez than Brito. I do. I think Martinez has more ceiling, more risk, but I think he's also a better defender there. Tana's gone, man. He's out. I mean, like I said, I think Brendan Rodgers could make some sense. I know there's been multiple talk in the past about them kicking the Rodgers on Nico Horner. And that's kind of fascinating to look at. Is one of those situations where you're kind of like, okay, what could will they revisit it again? That's one of those external guys I'm kind of thinking about, wondering about. I mean, maybe, right? Like, who knows with this team anymore? I mean, potentially. Oh, wait, no. No, thank you guys. I appreciate all the comments. I mean, maybe Polanco could be a buy low guy. Well, because he had a 142 weighted RC plus, he had his slugging percentage was really high. I mean, he was arguably, sorry, I feel like I'm talking too loud. It's the ADD thing where sometimes I can't monitor my tone. Arguably, he was the best second baseman in baseball that year. He had a top 6 MVP finish. Now his BABIP was unsustainable, and we talked about that last year all the time with the with Benson and Nolan. Apparently, is trying to make them one player. You have to pay attention to things like BABIP because that stuff shows guys who are in for aggression. That year that Jimenez had was one for the ages, and they gave him a contract because if he kept it up, it would have been a steal of a contract. If he didn't keep it up, you were in trouble. And unfortunately, he didn't keep it up. It's the same. It's the same thing with Miles Straw. Like that. Why do we invest in him just to give up? Because it's 2 years of him being a below league average bat, and the problem is that the cost is just skyrocketing. He made 5.5 million last year. He's going to make 10.5 million essentially this year, then 15.5, and then 23.5, 23.5, 23.5. He is not $100 million player. He's owed $97 million. Sign me up for Hassan Kim. I love him. I would love that for a second. Yep, this is what I'm leaning towards now. 2 to 3. I don't think Watson's quite there. I think he's going to probably be a center fielder. Yes. In a nutshell, yes. I think he's peaked. Well, it's the same thing as Straw in that they paid for a guy who's an elite defender coming off of kind of a career high peak where it's like, okay, maybe Straw can keep this up. And if he can be a 90 WR, remember they had him hitting cleanup. Or not cleanup, leadoff. Sorry. Long day. Had him hitting leadoff that year. So when they signed him to that extension, it was he was a great dude. He already made a lot of friends in the clubhouse. If you remember, like him and Jose were talking about signing extensions together because they were good friends. I'm not going to say they signed them just to make Jose happy, but I don't think it hurt. But they bought it peak on Straw, gave him an extension thanks to elite defense, being an up the middle talent, and thinking he could maybe keep up what he had done. Then he went from a 90 RC plus to a 60. He couldn't keep it up. Jimenez is actually a bigger drop. He went from 140 to an 80 this year. His drop is bigger than Straw's, but it's a very similar situation. Up the middle elite defender, you're giving that contract after what looks now to be a peak year, and that player severely falling off. So that's why it's the same. Straw is worse, yes, but it is the same setup. I do think we keep him. I just don't think there's enough trade value in there. Do you want to pay a guy who hits like he does 23 million for the 3 straight years? That's my thing. I don't. Just with the way this team is, you can't do that. I love him too. Like I think he's an absolutely a major league player. I think he's a fantastic, he's the best defensive player in baseball. But how much value does that really bring when he's a net negative with the bat? Thank you, Smokey. I appreciate that. I don't think it'll be cash, honestly, but I don't think it's going to be much because I think I've said all year that that contract is underwater. And I'll just go back to my original thing I've been repeating over and over again. Nobody pays for defense. They pay for a bat and then pay more for defense. If you can hit and you're an elite defender, you get paid a lot. Kevin Kiermaier, Kevin Pillar, like those guys got their contracts because they could hit and play defense. Now, it wasn't always stellar, but it was good enough. He is Jimenez really fell off a cliff this year. I mean, and the inconsistency was there. And I don't know what they're going to get in this trade. I would still love to see it. And I'm kind of sticking around here. And Brock, are you still in chat? I feel like I owe you that 5th overall pick, even though my computer's timed out over here. Like I said, I think if I'm looking at who the Cardinals might take 5th overall, Billy Carlson out of Corona High School. They like those California kids, up the middle talents. And Kason Cunningham from Johnstown, another shortstop. I would lean towards Billy Carlson. That's the name I would throw to you. So Brock, Billy Carlson, one of the 3 kids from Corona, California. I know I promised you I would get back to you on this. Go check him out. That's the guy I would say. I think. Oh, I like this a lot. That would be your second baseman. Spencer Horwitz has some really good data. I like Spencer Horwitz a lot. Let's put it that way. Like, let's see. Like, I didn't think they could, but Spencer Horwitz can play all over. And I mean, he had some nice performance last year. That is more than I would have expected. I have to be honest. I'm going to see if I can pull up a Savant page and then see if I can remember how to properly share in here so people can see why I like Horwitz. So, okay. So let me see if I can do this. Horwitz is a really good return. So I'm going to try to not screw this up. Share screen. Okay. Let me see if I can do this properly. So I'm going to apologize if I mess this up. So we're going to look at Horwitz here, right? Like, look at all of this. He hits the sweet spot. He squares up. He doesn't chase. He doesn't whiff. He doesn't K. He walks a lot, which this team's needs. His arm strength is not great. He doesn't run well, but he was a good fielder at multiple positions a year ago. So you see all this red here, right? And his expected slug is not bad in spite of not a lot of hard hitting barrel. But you see all of what he has there. Now let's type the guy we just traded away. Okay. And it decided to change it to Andrew. So when we look at the other side of this, look at this. Okay, again, like elite defense, but look offensively the difference. Is anyone really upset? Like, I mean, Nick Sandlin's part of the deal too. That's it. I mean, I'm fine with that. I like Horowitz. I like Horowitz a lot. I'm assuming that's Justin telling me that it's I like this deal a lot. And like Sandlin wasn't good last year. He's been inconsistent. I mean, and Horowitz too. It's like, okay, so he can play second base now. He can play multiple positions. So if Bazana gets ready, then nice. And like, who's upset about Sandlin? Like, I don't understand. So they did a defensive. Did I not? Oh, sorry. I thought I had turned off the sharing. Did they do a? Like, I'm sorry. I'm catching up with everyone. Like, all these people who spent the whole year complaining about Jimenez, now being upset about it, and then all the people who hated Sandlin being upset. It's like, like I wanted Sandlin to work, and he has these great points, but he's so dang inconsistent. He is the epitome of bullpen. Like Nick Sandlin is the living embodiment of bullpen because he has these high highs and low lows, and it's a complete inconsistency. Horowitz is really good, and he can play first. He can play second. Again, I just showed the data on him. Like, dude can hit. He gets on base. He does a lot of things this team doesn't do. Lots of years of control. Sandlin doesn't have hardly any value. Horowitz can be your second baseman this year. Like, Horowitz is a perfect bridge. And maybe I'm killing the podcast. Hopefully you'll all listen tomorrow as well. Because Horowitz can play second base this year. He's fine with range. He's not great. Is this? Oh, because of, sorry, I was just getting the sub current with the Dylan Carlson. That's another thing. But Horowitz can play second base this year for you. Bazana gets ready. When he is ready next year, Horowitz can play first base with Manzardo as your DH. He also can play some outfield. Like, they're getting a lot of flexibility in this deal. And it is they're improved offensively. To me, I would have never thought that. I thought they could get Horowitz. That is, and you're trading I know the Blue Jays need depth in the bullpen, but Sandlin wasn't going to make this team. He just wasn't. Like, he was not good enough with the way it's set up. I mean, Spencer Horowitz. Okay, so I got to share again. Nick Sandlin. Yeah, so it looks like it's Jimenez and Sandlin. So I love TJ Stats. He does some great work. So I'm going to do another screen share. And you get multiple reports about him. Multiple reports. You get multiple years of control. So I'm going to do another screen share here. I'm going to go over to Twitter. So look at this. A 127 WRC plus last year and 380 plate appearances. And as you can see, the darker colors, O contact. That means like in the in the zone contact high, out of the zone contact high. EV not great. His exit velocity hard hit, but look at the walk, look at the K, his sweet spot, his whiffs. He was really productive last year. really productive hitter. I mean, I'll go look up some of the other accompanying stats, but that's a significant improvement to go from a guy who had a 127 from an 82. I'm going to go do more. I'm going to go in depth on Horwitz now. So, and he had a lot of plate appearances too. I don't know why. I'm kind of at a loss because I didn't expect this. He's expected to be their DH, first base, second baseman, 27 years of age. He is not eligible to be a free agent until 2031. So you're getting 5 years of control with him. So if I go down, pull percentages, he pulls a lot, 38%. We know they like that. That is his main thing there in terms of that. In terms of BABIP, a 300 BABIP last year at that 127. So a 300 is sustainable. That is not in the unsustainable range. So he pulls a good amount. Could maybe have more pull. He fits their profile. Toronto wanted to pay money. They wanted relief help. They were looking for defense. I'm not sure. I don't get it. Like, yes, Horwitz last year, his game log, let's see, in terms of he DH'd 10 games. He played second base for 39 games. He played first base for 41 games. So you're looking at to me, this is, I love this trade. You're opening another 40-man spot. You're like, I mean, he does a lot of things this team needs. He walks. They needed someone who could walk more. He has a patient approach at the plate. He's not a guy who's a hacker or a swinger or a chaser. Like, yeah, you're going to take a hit defensively. But I do think the other nice thing, again, is like play him all over. And like my Jays fans are not liking this trade, which is always the good value, right? I mean, and then people are complaining that he's a platoon bat. It's like his splits again. So, so if I go pull his data from this year, like it's, I don't know, because people want to be mad. I guess that's what I always have to accept with trades like this or anything like this is unless it's a clear win, people want to be mad. So against lefties, he had a 53 WRC plus for Horwitz. That's bad. He can't hit lefties, but this team needed more guys who can hit righties. We have great amount of guys. The Noels, the Manzardos. Wait, Manzardo? No, Manzardo is also the same thing. It can't hit lefties, but I kind of agree with you, Peyton. Though I can't do that. It's a family show. He's a lefty. He can't hit lefty. No, he's a switch hitter, but or at least he was. Is he no longer? Sometimes guys give that up. I think he's a switch hitter, but he can't hit lefties at all. But that's fine because 80% of the time you need 80% of the pitches thrown in the big leagues are by right-handed bats. And this team needs more left-handed bats. They have gotten very unbalanced. So when you make this trade, it helps with that balancing because, hey, platoon him with Noel. Hey, platoon him with, not Lane. Yeah, Lane Thomas. Like you can figure out ways to make this platoon functional and effective. They needed a right-handed bat. They needed someone who's more patient. So it was a 147 versus righties. Like he absolutely destroyed right-handed pitching this year. So it's a really good production. Now he was not as good in the second half. He was a 154 in the first half. I got to find totals on that. No, but still a 114 was his decrease overall. And I'm just trying to see first half, second half. Well, in the first half, I mean, it was less overall plate appearances, but the other part, now if I come over here, teams, Guardians, he was, I think I said a 127 WRC plus. Guess how many Cleveland hitters had a better than 127 WRC plus last year? If your answer was 3, you'd be correct. It was Fry, Kwan, and Ramirez. He had a higher level of production last year than Josh Naylor when you boil down all of the stats. So what this could do, well, I'm not saying that Josh is bad in this case. I'm just saying that Horowitz was performing that same air. Like, they need a better hitter. Like, not than Josh, but they need better than what Andres was giving him. Like, he outperformed Josh in the overall big picture. This isn't a neg on Josh as much as it's a, hey, Horowitz did really well last year type of situation. People are asking, does it open up money? It should open about $10 million. But they should have already had some money. Like, does this open them? Like, I had someone reach out to me today that they heard someone on the radio say that Cleveland is, and I don't know how much truth there is to this. Okay. So let me put all of that there. But that Cleveland is interested in Nathan Eovaldi. I didn't think there would be anywhere where they have enough money. I still don't think that's happening, if I'm being honest. But like, it makes you wonder because, yeah, they save $97 million with Andres, but there's only $10 million slotted for this year. So that's where I'm kind of curious. And for those who are curious, to follow up on Andres Gimenez, a 64 and a 90 last year, as opposed to so he was better against lefties, and he had a big drop off against lefties this year, but a 90 versus righties versus a 148. So it's just, the split is interesting. And again, all the Blue Jays people I know are not happy. Like, that's to me the sign of a good return, right? Like, am I wrong? Like, the people I know who know this team well, don't like this trade. We're hearing, I know a lot of people still upset. After the show, a little more info sneaked out, and it seems like there's some things going on that beyond what was kind of known. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with this. So there's Horowitz is an older player. He debuted this year, I want to say, at age 27. We do have to comment on that because that's one of those things. Like, sometimes did he just have a flash in the pan year? The other side of it, I think, when you're looking at someone like him in this situation is, he debuted in 23, also hit well in a short sample that year, was really good this year in about 97 games. Is this a dude who's just raked in the minors? Very consistently performed at a very high level in the minor leagues. So that's the type of guy I always want to gamble on. Maybe. I don't think it's impossible. I just think it's not a great class for it, if I'm being honest, but this does do it. Again, show me you don't know about baseball in one tweet. Thank you. This is not a Dolan deal. This is not a cheap maneuver. Yeah, right here. So you could have your second baseman be Horowitz and Martinez. There's a logic to that. And like, most of the people who are complaining are just like, he's the known name. And they don't even realize that Jimenez is going to make $23 million in a few years. They don't realize he's had 3 years of declining power and offensive production. And anyone complaining about Sandlin, that's just a joke right now. All I've had in my comments for months are like, cut the dude. No, I think the person was doing the opposite. They're saying I shouldn't be attacking Josh. He was saying chill on Josh. He's saying that my comment was attacking Josh. So, they were saying, so yeah. Yeah, I don't get, like I said, I don't understand it. Like if they had to give up Gaddis, then I wouldn't have loved it, because then that feels cost cutting, because you're doing it then. Like, I like Spencer Horowitz, but I don't want to give up an elite central piece in my mind in Gaddis just to do a trade that still has some question marks. But Sandlin wasn't going to make this team. He was going to start the year in AAA more than likely. And they got a guy, they needed a right-hand hitter. They needed someone who's patient. They needed someone who could walk. Like, this is a player who fits exactly what they need outside of power. Let's be honest. They need power. You weren't going to get that in one of these trades. But I think that it is a situation where they got a guy who does a lot of things that you offensively need. And they were able to set themselves up for a better situation offensively the next few years when money is going to be weird because of the TV contract and the change. And at the same time, they cleared a roster spot. Okay. That's $1 million question, dude. I watched a vote yesterday say that like just McKenzie's got to earn it. I would still love to see them add another pitcher. Yeah, no cash going the other way. 100%. Oh. Yeah, no, I agree. 100%. Like, he was special to watch defensively. I'm going to be sacrilegious, but I thought he was better than Roberto out there at second base. People get mad at me. I'll stand by it. Like, I wish him well. I hope he rebounds. Like, he seems like a good dude. But the other thing I'll talk about is he always seemed like someone who got down and couldn't get out of it. Like, he's a guy who pressed. And I think like they knew that internally. And like, there's some concern about that. I don't think so. Because again, I think the plan for him is to debut late this year. Keep that draft pick. I know people are saying it's just because I love the draft, but like they value the draft pick side of things. So then you maintain that you can earn a draft pick for him in a year. And from there, Jesus Christ. So someone just, sorry, I got a bad tweet. But the Rocchio thing is just like, he's sad that his friend was traded, dude. Like, I think people are making too much out of the Rocchio tweet. Like, yeah, it's just like yesterday, people made a big deal about Tanner's tweet. Thinking, oh, what's that about? It was about he's a Cowboys fan, and they were sucking something pretty fierce. Like, don't read into tweets. Just don't. It's not going to benefit you. The happiness of the poor is short lived. Like, you know, he's sad. They were friends. His friend isn't there. Like, any of us would be sad if our friend left our workplace. Come on, people. Stop fighting in the comments. Yeah, it probably his best friend on the team too. Like, that's sad for him. He's gonna miss his friend, but like, okay, well, this person's picking too many fights, so goodbye, Michael. Yeah, he said his friend went away. I wouldn't read anything into it beyond that. Like, again, this trade, I don't, because people, we're all guilty of this, right? Like, okay, well, Peyton, you can go too, because I don't think Brock's done anything. So goodbye. Sorry. We're all guilty of looking for things that we want to look for. Like, you know, I'm trying to go through stats sometimes, and if I really like a player, I am guilty of looking at stuff because of how, you know, our natural biases are. So when you're looking at the people who already want to jump to Dolan's cheap, are going to just jump to that here because they're trading, you know, one of the biggest contracts on the team. But that's not this. They got a good player. You know, they got a really good player. Like, this is not a cheap moment. I can't find that hat. It disappeared in my basement. Like, I wish I could find that hat. I feel like it was magic and it disappeared. No. Why would he be gone? Horwitz is going to play second base, outfield, first base. You're fine. Nope. He got used. Here's the thing. Relief pitchers are creatures of habit. And for some reason, I love Vote to Death. Asking guys who have pitched one way all year to pitch a new way, go multiple innings, start in a different inning, come in with guys like they were not set up to be successful. It's just the truth of it. He overmanaged. I have got no concerns. I mean, it's just his language. I mean, I think you're really digging for things. A lot of people have shown that like the income in versus income out, this team is middle of the pack in overall spending in terms of the amount of income they take in versus the percentage. Travis Sawchuk had a great piece on that. So it's not about people are misreading that. And then they're throwing a tweet into Google Translate and they're not getting the full probably understanding on it. I agree. With a chance for more, 15 million minimum was pretty wild. Yeah, it was an underwater contract. Like, I don't like the trade value site, but like even from the outside in, I could see that Gimenez was underwater. I don't think so. His end was not great, and he really struggled with velocity. He's got some proving to do. Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. Like, Lindor is one of the best players they've ever drafted or developed. It sucks to lose a guy like that, but it's unfortunately baseball does not set up teams to be able to keep their elite talent. I would hope it's going to be better than Witter Stripling. Oh no, he has a future as a hitter. He can rake. I think he can hit at the big league level. I just don't think defensively he's got a position. It's like he might be like a DH they're playing on first base toward the end of last year a lot. He can hit. I just don't know about the defense. Yep. It's flexibility and it's roster flexibility. And it's also that Horowitz can play multiple positions. I hope so. I hope that this is not the end all. I understand they have depth, but one of the things I talked about on the show is you can't keep rolling out depth young players constantly. You have to have some degree of certainty, which is why Toronto makes this trade, right? Like Jimenez is going to give you he's going to be a positive player thanks to his defense, no matter what happens with his offense. So they just got certainty. Toronto traded for certainty and value. Cleveland traded for offensive upside because he is a player who's never had a huge pedigree, but that dude is hit at every single level. So it's Cleveland's taking a gamble. Toronto's going for certainty because their necks are on the line. Let's be honest. Toronto's not in a good situation in terms of that management team. But I would like to see Cleveland roll some of that. I think Cantillo has the stuff. Can we make them one person? That would be stellar. I think that Cantillo, and I'm leaning towards Cantillo. I think Cantillo's got a real shot to be one of the 5 starters when this team breaks camp. No, I didn't think they'd get anything at all. Like to get Horowitz, who looks like a legit major league hitter, and to trade a guy whose contract to me was underwater, no matter how good the defense, and a pitcher who wasn't going to make the roster is fantastic. It's bad. He's not going to run. That's not him. I mean, the TV contracts, it's bad. Like they're going to be lucky to get 50% of what they made. That's just the overall look at it. Yes, they're going to get $15 million from additional money this year from like a fund that Major League Baseball is put together, but they're going to get the TV revenues all changed. Potentially, like that's going to be, one of those things. Yes, that's it. Exactly here. Brock's right. They're desperate. That front office, they won't be there in a year if they have another year like they had this year. They just won't. So due to that desperation, they went for certainty. They went for certainty, and it's going to be, and they needed bullpen depth. I mean, they cut Jordan Romano, right? That's his first name. They cut Romano just so they knew that and then Philly paid him the full amount. I do. I mean, here's the thing. If Shane Bieber comes back and pitches anywhere close to what he pitched a year ago, if you had Bieber and Bybee at the start of that rotation, instead of what they, some of the other, like, juggling with knives they were doing in the postseason of trying to make pitching work, like Boyd was good. Don't get me wrong. But Bieber at full Bieber is a much different story. Like, they might have actually had a chance in that Yankee series. And Jimenez, for all of his great defense, was really, really bad offensively in the postseason. Thank you, Tyler. Keep working on that. I need that. Listen, Mike Aubrey, if he didn't have a bad back, would be great. It should be. It makes sense. This stuff is there. Just can he command it consistently? We saw that in the postseason when it fell apart. Oh, Jake, don't tease me. I don't think he does, and I think that's why he's not getting traded. Yeah, this is one of the things I've always said is pay attention when a team does something that goes against type. And they have been all about defense and speed. Instead, what they got here is a guy who's outs above average was positive. Now, I'd have to look. I guess I should probably do this. Let's look at what his actual breakdown is. I'm going to misspell his name so much as a dyslexic person. That's a new name I got to learn to spell. I'm kind of curious to look at his fielding and see, can he actually play second? He was in a 0 at second base. It means he wasn't negative. He was fine. We're not going to get quite the same level, obviously, as Andres, because he was the best defensive player in baseball. But he's passable at second and good at first. So, you're going for that. Yeah, he had the elbow issue, but after Toronto didn't want to pay him. They didn't want to give him arbitration, so they let him go, and Philly gave him his full arbitration amount. That's so in spite of that. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there's some of this that happens. Travis Sawchuk does some fantastic work, and he did a Scrooge index, and it's really worth going and reading that. I would highly recommend it. It's really interesting. It kind of shows what's happening in terms of because we get some degree of information, plus like the Braves and the Blue Jays really give us a lot more information as well into how it works, because those are teams that are traded. The information is more transparent with them. Yes, hopefully he can bounce back, because that's the thing. If Gavin bounces back to what he was looking like last spring, if he can get healthy, if Bieber rebounds, that's a lot of ifs. I mean, imagine if McKenzie bounced back. Like, all of a sudden that rotation goes from a weakness to a huge strength, and they're just a different team. Yeah, this is where I am. I think this is a good deal. I hate trading Andres in principle. He seemed like a good dude. He seemed like just a great person. He's an electric defender, but this is a smart trade. That's always the risk with Logan Allen. I don't think they're going to go for Jess Winker. Maybe a starter. This team has spent a lot of time. We need to make like an AI instead of being artificial intelligence. It'd be I guess it can be AI. Maybe we could say a JI. Is that going to get me in trouble? Is that something bad? A jerk index. Jess Winker, by all reports, is not necessarily. He's burned a lot of bridges, and they've moved away from that type. But a starter, I think, can still happen. Yeah. So, like I said, I think why this sets up perfectly. Horowitz can play second base this year. Bazana should be able to play in 26. But you have Horowitz for 25, and then next year, if Kavas breaks out, you've got him to replace Naylor. Maybe someone else moves quickly, or if not, you have Horowitz can then shift to first base and be that. So this is a player who sets him up. Jimenez was $10.5 million. I don't know. I would rather trade for Weathers than Luzardo. Pay a little less, keep a little more. Give me Sixto every day. We need Tristan to just. I feel like last year points he's thinking too much. People always ask that question, and I don't think it's going to be that much, because there's a lot of in and out with it all. And this team, like Andres was by all like he was respected and liked, but he's kind of a quiet dude. I think they'll be sad that he's gone. But I don't think he's not one of the leaders. That's also why you're paying Hedges and people like that, is because those are the leadership dudes for you. The one thing with Luzardo is some of the health, a little more inconsistency. It's going to be a pretty big cost. That's why I'm like, I'd almost rather pay for Weathers or Braxton Garrett. Yeah, the lefty. Like, I'd rather kind of take just a step down. I don't think so. I've done some math, and yes, we don't know what the TV hit is going to be this year, but just based on contracts in, contracts out, what they're paying guys, also take into effect, like, well, paying Lane Thomas a full amount. Like, I went through and did the math and did like his prorated amount last year, Alex Cobb's prorated amount versus like a full year of Lane Thomas. I did all of that math, and I had them at about 20 million below where they were last year salary wise. On top of that, you then had the fact that the draft, they spent 20 million last year, the highest amount any team has ever spent in the MLB draft. They had 2 first rounders in the first overall pick. This year, they don't have that. So when you're getting to that part of it, that's like another 10 million in operating expenses. This would be, like Shane, and then this is another 10.5. So that has me closer to like 40 million and a half in operating expenses. Shane brings you down to 30 and a half million. Yes, they may not spend all of it, but I believe there's money to be spent. I mean, to me, they're filler. I gotta be honest. It just hasn't worked out. Probably about 30 minutes in. Ike Irish, Auburn bat. He's a fun one. I like Engel more than Cozart. See, that's the MLB top 30. And I love Mayo and Callis. They're on the Mount Rushmore of the prospect grouping, but they're 2 dudes, and they're not the dudes. It is impossible to do the job they do. And they do get some help, but it's impossible to do. But they do slot guys in based on draft position. We know this is a thing. So the fact that Cozart was a second-round pick means he gets slotted to this level. In no world should he be higher than Cooper Engel. Cooper Engel had the best offensive production in their minor leagues by WRC plus last year, while moving across multiple levels, while focusing on the hardest position to play in the minors. Cooper Engel should be a borderline top 10 guy. You can go back and listen if you want to. Go find the video or the podcast, Most Underrated Prospects in the System, and I go on about why that's Cooper Engel. And I like Cooper Engel a lot. But those guys are still a year or 2 away. But yeah, Cooper Engel's a lot of fun. Cozart is a better defender than Engel, has a bigger arm, has some power, but man, there's some swing and miss. I have some contact concerns. I was starting to be like, okay, I was wrong on Big Christmas. And the last month and a half of the season just shifted me. I don't know. We got to see him show that he can do things consistently. Oh, my 3-year-old's home, so I apologize if you can hear the banging. I don't like the top of the class as much as last year's top. I know people love Ethan Holiday. When I did the math, college players are more likely to be stars than high school players are to be average. Again, I'll say that. You have a better chance of getting a star from the college ranks than a high school player being average. So I look at the top of this college group, and it's Jamie Arnold, Jace LaViolette has too much swing and miss. He's got to show me he can cut down. Anyone over 20% is scary at the college level. So Bremer and Arnold are right now the top of the class for me, and I just don't love that as well. I mean, those are 2 guys who had connections to Cleveland. I mocked Kloffenstein to Cleveland. Cole Wilcox was rumored. I mean, Eric Longenhagen said they were going to take him. I don't know if either is good enough to get grabbed, if I'm being honest. I got to really dig a little bit more, but I'm curious to see right now. This is correct. Yeah, he's much better at first, but he can't handle second well enough. But yeah, I think, Angel Martinez and him make a lot of sense there. Yeah, I think the only way I would consider trading Naylor is for a starting pitcher that you can count on. I just don't know who that is. What my rumor at the start of the year was like, try to see if you can do Josh Naylor for Mitch Keller, maybe something like that. Ethan Petrie, check him out. He fits a lot of the things. Now he is a first base power hitter from South Carolina. He just destroyed the Cape. Again, we know this team loves the Cape. Caden Bodine, someone asked about earlier, a catcher with some good hit tool from Coastal Carolina, also had a great year on the Cape. But you want to look for those Cape performers. I mean, it's like I say, it's just a significantly higher rate. I'd have to go pull up the numbers. I sat there and plugged in every draft class since 2000, and I looked specifically at the top 10 picks because those are the guys who are like there, maybe the top 20 picks. I was looking at the guys we know the best, the ones you expect to go there. Yeah, this is the thing. Like, for anyone complaining about, like, there were people yesterday being like, why would you pay Bieber that much money if he can't come back till July? Shane Bieber is going to make $14 million with his buyout. Alex Cobb got $15 million, and he couldn't play last year. And he had like 17 million injuries. It's like, that's what the market is. You have to trade. Yeah. Yeah, but Keller's got some things that could go well. I don't think so. Because again, this is a front office under fire. This front office needs to contend. So they don't care if Bo Bichette walks in free agency. They need their horses, because if they don't make the postseason this year, I think everyone's out. And I think they know that. So I think they're going to hold on to their pieces. They're not going to make any moves that could affect their chances to compete. And again, they are under the fire, and they traded for certainty. Like, okay, like Andres Gimenez is an everyday second baseman. And again, this is the whole, they don't care about tomorrow, right? Like, this front office doesn't care about the fact that Andres Gimenez's contract is underwater because he's going to make $23 million. And so this is, next year will be 25, 26, in 27, 28, and 29, he's going to make $23 million. But they don't care, because there's a decent chance they're not even here unless things go well. You mean former Guardian Ernie Clement? Yeah, what a story for him. Yeah, Petrie is going to be interesting to check out. But man, he just showed up at the Cape. He's a polarizing guy, but he does fit a lot of what they do. Like I said, Ethan Petrie is the guy that my first mock, I can I can be kind. I did a way too early mock. I'll try to do another one tomorrow because it fell apart today. Let's see if I can, since people are asking draft questions. Let's see. I did this back in November. So I'll do a share screen again so people can share screen. Yes, I guess I can tell it doesn't. Okay. So this is like a sleeper pick with every team. And then who I thought would go. Like, I like Camarilla significantly more than MLB did. And some of this isn't great because it is like over a month old. But this is what I thought would happen based on where things were at the time. So just kind of do a slow scroll down. Again, Henry Ford and Ike Irish. That's interesting. I'm not sure why I had the Cardinals doing those guys in retrospect. But you can see I had Cleveland with Ethan Petrie and Nick Dumasnil. Those are guys. Merrick Houston had a great Cape. That's someone to know. Slater DeBron is this year's Slade Caldwell, which, we heard the Cleveland liked a year ago. So there's some guys. Justin really likes Brock Sell here. Henry Godbout's really interesting. Like, this is a decent year to have a few. Like, I think Baltimore set up really well for this year's draft. I think so, because teams want to avoid some of these ridiculous monies. Yeah, this is supposed to be when they're going to do it. But they're not cutting payroll. Their payroll just got bigger, significantly bigger. I mean, listen, I last year's mock predicted the Guardians would take Bazana, and he was number one on my board all year. He is probably right now working on baseball. He's got no life outside of it. This is all he does. I think he's an all-star. I think he's an all-star waiting to happen at second base. They got so much depth. Like, Eli looked like he turned a corner, but I don't think it's going to hurt him. Hey, thanks for coming and joining. I appreciate everyone who's come in and made this such a fun show. I know it was supposed to be, I never got beyond the 5th pick in the draft. If you follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky, I'm going to probably do an updated mock I might do like a sheet 2, and I'll share that out on there. I wish I had the time to write. For those who do not know, check out Locked On Guardians. Appreciate any of the support on there. But I'm a special ed teacher by day, and I've got a heavy caseload this year, so I don't have that time during my planning to write like I did a year ago. That was my break in the school day, was to write. That's the thing. Like, that's why Sandlin couldn't make this team. That's why Eli Morgan was going to be in he would make the team. Don't get me wrong. It was going to be a hard situation to follow. There's just so much depth there. I feel really good. And then you got Alamon coming, and Andrew Walters, people forget, he's got that ceiling to be the number 2 guy in this pen, and there's more coming. At Jeff MLB Draft is mine. So that's for Blue Sky and Twitter. So if you want to be on either one, that's it. Listen, I being someone who's ADD and dyslexic, I appreciated having a special ed teacher. Now I'm a middle school special ed teacher, and sometimes it's a bit draining. I literally ran from work because I'm in Central Time Zone, drove home to come down and do this. So I didn't stop I stopped for lights, don't get me wrong, but one job to the next job. Soon I'll go upstairs, get my kids to bed, I'll record a podcast with Justin, and then maybe I'll play some PS5 to just stop. Yeah, I think Walters is getting slapped on a little. I do. I think Avila is underrated. I think I wish they had gone to him more in the postseason. He was awesome in that Yankee series, and they never went back to him. Is he going to be a back end guy? No, but is the last guy in your pen? He is perfectly serviceable. He's a solid player in that role, and they got him for free. It's almost like that's the hidden benefit of the Scott Barlow deal, right? The NEL was really bad for the Padres, so they had to move bullpen pieces around early, and Avila is the guy they cut. No, thank you for joining me. Honestly, the numbers here are as high as they've been, and we're at almost 2 hours in. So thank you, all of it. Okay, so I get that he's got the pitch mix for it, but I think right now we think a lot of guys can be starters who I think that is a lot harder to do than we all want to admit. He started 6 games for the Padres in 23, and he just wasn't great in that role. I don't think he can start. I gotta be honest. I could be wrong. I could be very easily wrong in this. He was a starter. I want to see, almost his entire minor league career. He was a starter in the minors through 23. But the same reason, Gaddis was not good as a starter. People wanted to cut him. I think sometimes you just got to accept that some guys are better in that role. I could be wrong, though. I'm not opposed, but I think a lot of people are thinking a lot of guys can do that transition. I think so too. I think Cantillo is the guy to watch. He's always had really good stuff. The command has been the question. The health has been the question. He's got a chance. I wonder about that too. It's interesting. I think this Nick Mitchell, really, let me grab my files. My other computer went to sleep, and see what I have. Praying David. Yeah, same here. Well, right now it's I compare him to Montgomery from last year's draft class. He can improve and do stuff, but there is some risk. You don't want a college K rate over 20%. I was going through a lot of those guys, and that's a lot of the failures. And it's not to say he can't cut that back. Some guys have. So it's just something you definitely want to watch with him overall and see. Because if he cuts it back, there's definitely the tools there. I kind of like Cam Camarilla better. I know that's definitely a minority opinion. Okay. Let me pull up my computer's being annoying. I'm trying to remember. Nick Mitchell is one of those guys I know I've talked about. That's interesting, though, that got reported as the trade was done, and then Cleveland's getting another piece. I said he's another Indiana kid. I remember this now. And he was this past year in the draft. So let me go baseball cube. So this is a guy who they must have liked in the draft because he was taken in 24. out of Bloomington, Indiana, 5'10". He transferred from Western Illinois, was really good in Indiana. Center field, right fielder. Had 2 years in the Cape Cod where he performed fairly well, nothing spectacular. Looks like, yep, they got Nick Mitchell as well. A bit like the Baseball America has Nick Sandlin going to there. So I'm just trying to see what I can pull on top of that. He says a transfer, kind of a undersized guy. Moved right from Western Illinois to the Big Ten, performed well. That's a nice little get. I'm curious to see if he was. I doubt he was in the Padres top 30 list, but like he's a nice depth guy with a chance for more. Yeah, he didn't make their top 30 list. So yeah, it's clearly someone they liked. He was drafted, like I said, just this past year. And he's someone they saw multiple times on the Cape. So they had that familiarity with there. He played a little bit I'm sorry, both these are in 23. So in 23, he played for 2 separate teams in the Cape at 19 years of age. And he classic Guardians. So Nick Mitchell just turned 20 in September. So that means he was young for the draft class, 1 year at a big program, Cape performer, has a little bit of speed from what I understand, runs decently well. Another fun like outfielder. I'm kind of curious. Let's see, I got too many things open at once. Not a lot of power as one would expect, but some speed. Yeah, nice. I mean, what was he, a 4th rounder? I think I saw. So it's a nice depth player, like to get an interesting prospect back in the trade as well. I mean, it sounds good. I just want to see for sure what round he was taken in. 4th round. Okay. And while I'm at it, let's just do one more level on Nick Mitchell here. If I go to the 4th round, since I still have the draft tracker, he was actually, I think, 4C. He was in the comp round. Slot value is 515. He got 465.50. So I mean, he got a decent signing bonus too. 467,000 is like, to compare it to Cleveland. Let's just do it this way. Like, okay, so team Cleveland Guardians. If you watch the show, you've heard us talk about all of their guys. So he got more money than Rafe Schlesinger got, who Cleveland drafted in the 4th round. He got more money than Aiden Major, the kid from West Virginia. More money than Zask and Matson and Caden Favors. So like he got a decent signing bonus for his rounds. That shows there's value in that. I mean, I don't think this is completely, especially if they were to eat Miles Straw, it doesn't make sense. It could make sense. Hey, Tim Herron, another Hoosier. They do. But that's why, like, I didn't think Nick Sandlin had it. Yeah, I mean, that IU team, Indiana has gotten really good at producing baseball in the Big Ten. We talked about Tim Herron being from there. I'm trying to remember who they signed last offseason as a minor league free agent. Like, Indiana is a pretty good program reporter. That'd be interesting, for sure. I mean, the other big thing, too, is just going to be, like, this team adds a ton of open spots once they get to spring training. Like, because of all the players who are hurt. I mean, I think you bring him in a slow roll. I think you have him as more of that, what Eli Morgan was last year. And you let him see if he can get back to it. Because how much of his struggles in 23 were pitching related and how much was maybe working through an injury? Eric Zabrowski is making this team. Yeah, I like that they also got a prospect in this deal. I'm trying to see what I got on Nick Mitchell, but it's like, kids hit well. Is he going to be a top 30 for the Guardians? No, but like they've had some success with guys like this, kind of the gritty grinders, but he got paid well. So he's not just some like random like add-in piece. Like they paid him money that shows that they think that there's, potentiality there. And I mean, he was a big ad for Indiana. So if you were a fan, you probably saw him. He played well in the Cape. And again, he just turned 21 September, so young for the class. But why would Cleveland want to trade Horowitz? They need what he does. Like, he fits this team very well. Doesn't make any. I don't think so. Love Devin Taylor. Love him. He's a. I know most people don't have him in the top 15 still. I do. Another guy who did well in the Cape. Because of how my heart feels, I think I can only give it a B+. Just because it does hurt trading Jimenez. Like, I love like his defense is a thing of beauty, and like, you know, signing him was a big deal. It just hasn't worked out, and I don't have an issue with this trade. I mean, I probably should give it an A. Like, I'd probably give Toronto a B and Cleveland an A, because Toronto is under the gun and they're trading for certainty, whereas Cleveland traded a reliever who wasn't part of their plans anymore. Kind of a failed second round pick with Nick Sandlin. And you know, they went for certainty, and I appreciate that. But I think that how should I phrase this? Like, so, like, I get what they did. They got the safest part of this trade. Cleveland took a gamble on a guy who performed at a high level, but has never been a big prospect. Yeah, I'm gonna miss that too. It was fun to watch. He feels like a first base only guy. I got to see him play this year. I got to see more of him before I can really say. He feels like more of a second round guy to me right now, but I got to see more. Do I think the Mets are up there with I don't think anyone's up there with the Dodgers right now. Like I appreciate what the Mets have done, but like, there's still a lot of uncertainty with that team. And there's still a lot of gaps and holes and things I got to figure out. Like, Soto is amazing. I don't think so, because I don't think he's had a history of health issues. This was a declining year for him offensively. He's a free agent to be scheduled to make $12 million. What are you going to get for him? I don't think I think there's more value in letting him play out the year than there is in what you trade and get for him. I mean, I was a right fielder because of how bad my defense was. So everyone looks good to me. I mean, see, to me, that's like the wrong take. You know, to me, it is they got 6 years for 1 year of Lindor. Like, yeah, I mean, the Mets were always going to win if you look at it that way, because Lindor's the best player. Like, they were always going to win because Lindor is an excellent player. But Cleveland didn't trade Lindor. They traded a year of Lindor and got 6 years. So they also were successful. I mean, I don't know, because right now there's like no one from Cleveland at the winter meetings. We're not getting a lot of great reporting. So maybe, I mean, it would stink to me. Because I think Horowitz fits this team perfectly, and I think he brings a lot that they have. I don't know what Cleveland would want unless they're getting pitching from Pittsburgh, but like, that'd be weird to me. Yep, put it on the board. There we go. Figure it out. I mean, no one matches Soto. He's really good, but the Mets still have a lot of holes. I want to say yes, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to cost too much. Me, which Anthony, I appreciate you, and every day I'm just curious which one of my takes doesn't work. Kind of curious how I misspoke. I do that. I also don't think Pittsburgh would. Yeah, a lot of people have that same thought. Pittsburgh's also got some interesting guys in AAA, but I'd like to get some cost certainty. But I also don't like. I don't know. Like, he's a. Yeah, it's like, I feel like right now, this team could use a guy who walks, could use a guy who's got patience, could use a guy who doesn't chase a lot, could use a guy who could play some first and second. Like, unless they're getting value, I wouldn't love flipping Horowitz just for a random guy, especially because like I think he fits on this team. Well, I mean, Fry's going to be a DH when he comes back, but it's going to take a while. Naylor is here throughout the year. Manzardo, basically, there's your first baseman in your DH, and then you have, you figure out how you're going to move through it. And Manzardo and Fry could just be a platoon. Like, Fry's numbers against righties, yeah, he's playing hurt, but they also weren't great. Like, I don't think you can guarantee him. I don't think you can guarantee that he's going to come back and be like more in a platoon. They're a second round pitcher at all last year. Do you mean the second guy, Dowdy? I don't think any of the high school kids did. Dowdy was the second round pick was Cozart. In the second guy they took was Braylon Dowdy. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I just think it's silly because you're trading 1 year of a guy. Like, I think there's this. I love baseball, but there's unfortunately the Cleveland Guardians. There's a bit of a toxic relationship with the fan base, and there's a lot of people who want to look at the negativity and jump right into the negativity. And people are looking for reasons. Oh, they lost the Lindor trade. Like, I remember when they made the Lindor trade and they made the Clevenger trade, within 6 months, and everyone's like, they traded both those guys and didn't get a single top 100 prospect. But you go back and you look, it's like, no, those trades worked out. Like, I'm sorry. 1 year of Lindor netted you, and Lindor was coming off a down season at the time. Like, I don't think everything is black and white, but we all have our biases, right? Like, if you are upset with ownership and you're upset with this team and you don't like this team, or you don't like all the choices they've made, then this is the perfect time to be like, hey, they're being cheap and they lost the Lindor trade and they're doing all these things poorly. Like, it's the same people who always tweet negatively at me. This gives them an excuse to do it because it's any trade. They can do that. This is an interesting trade idea. Like, this might be close to value because Miguel has some interesting bits and pieces. They're not keeping Alonso. Credit. Like, this, you got some ideas here, Guardians Enjoyer. I don't think it's far gone. I don't. Yeah, he's really interesting. He hasn't pitched that long. Really good athlete. Can really spin that secondary stuff. Not the biggest kid, but like, there are people who thought he could be the top prep pitcher in last year's class. Like, he didn't pitch last year. He was out in instructs, I believe, but really fun. Oh, that's okay. Sorry, dude. You're like the third person to make that comment today, so I think you got unloaded on. So I'll apologize. Yeah, he's good. He's fun. Mitchell was a 4th round comp pick. Who did the Blue Jays lose last year that they got a comp pick for? I can't think who got signed away from them. It's a situation where he is he's not spectacular, but I mean, they gave him $467,000. That's not a small amount of money. He got paid a little bit under slot. He is, left field, center field, runs a little bit, was good, but not great on the Cape. A young kid. He was only 20 didn't turn 21 until September, young for his draft class, a lot of those bits and pieces. So I think that, like, when you're looking at him, is he a top 30 guy? No. He's kind of like a Justin Boyd a few years ago. The Boyd hasn't been healthy, so you probably think that's a negative, but just in terms of like valuation and placement, it's like, he's a fun little auto ticket. And again, don't sleep on Indiana as a prospect pipeline. Hey, Brock, I hope you appreciate your time as a Cardinals fan. Pete Alonso is this year's Blake Snell. I think it's going to take a while for that contract to go because talk about declining data and high money value. Yeah, Lindor wasn't going to stay. And yeah, Lindor is a Quan. I know people want to sign him. I just don't see how it goes. Hey, no problem. I'm glad that I could provide some insight on Mitchell. It's like I said, I know a lot of people like Spencer Horowitz, and I'm really hoping that he is not on the move unless you're getting something really good. Like, I think he's a really interesting young player. I've talked about him with Justin off the air as like a fit for this team. And I just didn't think they would trade him because he has so much team control. And he said, this team needs guys who can walk and do things like that. And yeah, it's fun. It was average. Wasn't great. Maybe a little bit below average, but passable. Better than Juan Brito. Probably worse than Angel Martinez. Yeah. So we did see that. I'm kind of waiting to see if there's anything to it. Like, I think that's why I'm kind of talking about it. Like, I would hate if he's traded out unless you're getting something good. I'm just going to try to shift this a little because I think he fits well. Unfortunately, I don't think like any of the Cleveland media is at the winter meeting, so we're not able to get like anything outside of Ben Nicholson-Smith here. I'd be curious to see the Pirates do have a need for first baseman. That's why I joked. That's why I talked about them in like a trade piece with Cleveland. You can go find that podcast from earlier this offseason about like Josh Naylor for Mitch Keller. Wouldn't that be weird if it was Spencer Horwitz for Mitch Keller? That'd be different. Potentially. I think that could be there. Yeah, it is. Number 3 prospect in the system. Absolutely. Like, not only was it high level performance, but it's like expected stats and data and everything is really high on him. I think he's a really, really fun prospect. He's a guy on the rise, but he also might never have higher trade value because right now everyone's like, he can play short and he just had a breakout year. And I think he could be certainly someone to watch for them overall. I think he is a really fun prospect. I have him higher than DeLauter right now because of DeLauter's health issues. I don't know. Like, I always say to go and look at a few years ago when Stephen Kwan made that video that leaked with him discussing things. I don't think there's any hope for an extension, unfortunately. He is very sure of himself in Cleveland. From some of the data we have, is not exactly going out of their way to offer anyone kind of the money he's hoping to get. It's not like it's huge money. They're just not, after everything else going sideways with extensions, it's like they're not approaching anyone with like great extension offers is what it feels like. Well, I do think like looking at their top prospects, it's like you're not getting Chandler. I don't think you're getting Ashcraft, maybe Thomas Harrington. Like, but after that, it's like, I mean, Hunter Barco is someone I think they would like, but I wouldn't trade sure for unsure. Unless you think you can fix him. I mean, there were people who thought he was the best player in his draft class, said he had like an 80 hit tool. It's amazing how much his hit tool has dropped. But I mean, he had some talk of being the top overall player in his class, the hand-eye coordination. All of a sudden, he can't find the zone. Like, I don't know. It'd be interesting, that's for sure. It'd be kind of like Khalil Watson, but without some of the off the field that pushed Watson's value down as much as it did. But I keep just like hitting a refresh, seeing if there's anything else we got in terms of information. I feel like like I said, I will miss what Jimenez did, but that contract was bad. That just. I think that this is step one in helping you find ways to get pitching. I don't think you'll like my answer, but this is a bottom 5 market in terms of money. It's just the truth of it. It's like, it's not the biggest market. It's not the biggest regional zone in terms of like advertising and everything else. And I think that just, it's always going to be that unless baseball changes the way the game is. Until we get a fundamental shift, teams like Cleveland are never going to be able to keep players long term. Like Jose is the exception that proves the rule, unfortunately, and that's just going to be the way of it. They're never going to be able to be competitive. I mean, he's the shortstop. I'll say this for next year. Like they've got enough young guys coming up. There'll always be someone else if he can't put it together. Yeah, this is true. No, I think people make too much of the Bo Josh thing of it. Like it's nice to play with your brothers. But I don't think it's quite as like mentally breaking or as they knew eventually it would happen. Like I think this is something they expected. I don't know a Jays writer who is happy with this trade. Every Jays person I follow is unhappy. I think that says a lot. It means that maybe he doesn't try outfield. I think that's really the only thing it means. Again, I think he could play in the big leagues this year, but I think the whole thing is to set him up to still qualify as a rookie, have him call him up in September, do the Wyatt Langford treatment, and then next year, because again, then this sets up perfectly if they keep Horowitz, where right now Horowitz can fill in for Jimenez for the year, and then next year he could take over for Naylor, and he moves from second to first, and he'd call up Bazana. So to me, I was like, that's the other reason that goes. I am not sold. I'll put it that way. I still don't know. I get the defense is there, and I get he had great parts in the offseason, but it was just anytime anyone was on base, he couldn't hit. Like when there were big moments, he airmailed his throws. Like his errors always come late in the game, and I just worry about that. And I don't blame him. Like Horowitz, all that dude has done in the minors is hit and hit and hit and hit. And he got to the big leagues and he hit, and the data looks good on him. Like when I go and look at a young player who performed to a 127 weighted runs created plus, that would have been, again, the only players with higher ones on Cleveland last year were Quan, Fry, and Jose. 3 all-stars. And when I go and look at a young player like that, I think about, Nolan Jones and Will Benson, who had those great data, but the other side of it is they had monster BABIPs, which showed you they were like lucky. That's not there. He had a 300 BABIP. That's in the acceptable range. Like he went out and performed well. Is he probably a platoon guy? Yeah, he's probably a platoon guy, but 80% of the time he faced right-handed pitching. So he's going to be useful 80% of the time. And honestly, this team needs more left-handed bats. They got a little too right-handed heavy with some of the recent moves and trades. They need a little more balance. So I think he fits. I do. I don't think he's going to get another opportunity. I feel like they could have at various points, but it feels like they believe in Rocchio. Yeah, just because the ceiling is so much higher with Arias, both offensively and defensively. And people throw away the 2023 season. He was really good against right-hand pitching that year. So it would have been nice to see it work. Like, he's not gonna hit for power. Like that's not the dude's game. But again, I'll drop in chat so people, instead of sharing my screen, like his baseball reference page is all red. Like if you look at this, it's like this team, one of the biggest problems was they don't strike out a lot, but they chase. They chase out of the zone. A lot of guys expand. He did not chase. He walks a lot. This team needs to walk more. Even though he hit the launch angle sweet spot, he squares it up. He doesn't have a fast bat. He doesn't hit it hard, but because he's a good hitter, he hits it well. He's not the best base runner. That's he's not fast. He's a little lumbering. But yeah, he's just been productive this past year, and he's been productive at every level. Yeah, but he did that last year too. Like, in fairness, like, because I mentioned that to Justin, and Justin corrected me. So it's one of those things where I would like it to not be the case, but I don't know. I feel like if they really felt he was the guy, that they would have kept him here. Well, it does. It just feels like he's what they need. That's why I'm kind of like, unless they get something really nice, if they end up flipping Horowitz, I'm going to be a little sad. I like the profile, I like the hitter. I don't know a Blue Jays person who is not a fan of him and is not kind of upset by it. It's just, and Mitchell's not a nobody. I just don't understand the people who think that that there's more to it, or that Naylor is definitely on his way out. I don't know. I think Horowitz plays second. It's a good question. I mean, personally, with that profile, if you went and looked at the Salon page, I think that'd be a good spot for him. For Reynolds. Which Reynolds, dude? I can't think who that is right now. After a full day of work and jumping into this, I'm a little brain dead. Nope. 4th round pick out of Radford, but he just kept hitting. Yeah, this is the thing. A lot of Jays fans thought that he is the guy to replace Velade. He's been good. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of my final is my thought too. It's like, I'll keep restating myself. You don't pay out the nose for defense. You don't pay for defense. You pay for offense, and you pay a lot when someone has both. But Juan Soto is a pretty terrible defender. That didn't affect anything. Ohtani is I know he's a two-way guy, so it's completely different. But it's a situation where you're not paying for defense, and that's why you can't go out and pay for him. Oh, okay. So Brian Reynolds. I don't think they are trading Reynolds. I think that they're trying to, that's another group that is feeling the pressure. So I think, maybe it's if they're going to trade someone, it's like Harrington or Ashcraft, one of their young pitchers, more than likely. I think he is likely a platoon guy, maybe, because he's young, you give him an opportunity to see. I just think that he was pretty bad against lefties. Let's be honest. He was really bad. But since he is a lefty, you're going to still play him most of the time. That's the net advantage. I mean, I don't think you have to solve his contract. I think if you were to trade him, you're not so worried. I don't think he's getting traded not because of his contract. I think if he gets traded, it's because he's, if they aren't moving him, it's not contract related. It's because he's a first baseman who's in a walk year, who's had health issues and doesn't have, has never taken care of himself physically. Let's be honest with that. That's a detractor as a guy gets older. So yeah, I just think that Naylor has his own sets of risks. But yeah. I'm just kind of going through and see if anything is updated yet. But yeah, I like. I mean, they're not getting Sasaki. Roki Sasaki is a fantastic player. Cleveland is good at development, but Cleveland never gets international guys. A and B. Does everyone remember when Ichiro's quote about I hate Cleveland. If I ever say that I am a fan of Cleveland, someone punch me in the face or something along those lines. His word carries some value. It's not a large Japanese community. It's not a big market to get advertising revenue. It's not an easy one overall. So as much as, I would love them to add him, I don't think they're going to. Yeah, I mean, his arm, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like Soto, there's been talk for years that he's like a DH in training. No, because it'd be for 1 year. Because he also plays first base. He's also played some outfield. He plays all over. So if you're having him play second base, it would be for next year until Bazan is ready, and then maybe he shifts to replace Naylor, or maybe he can play some left field. First, left, and short could be the spots for him, or maybe you flip him in a year. But he is a guy where I think it's a perfect situation where second base now, first base after that. Yeah, and that win for me, I'm kind of surprised by it. Depends on if they can find better. It does. Like it's that situation where, I don't think I think his time's kind of running near its end. They also had Kazuhita Tadano and Masa Kobayashi. Fukudome was probably the best of the bunch, honestly, with his time here. I haven't done enough to know if he needs tweaking or not, but yeah, I just don't see the fit, unfortunately. His arm though isn't good. It's the problem. Like you'd have to put him in left, which is the issue because you got Kwan, so he's kind of got to be first base, second base, because the arm is probably not good enough for right field. Here's the Ichiro quote. I don't think he's coming because again, it's a very small Japanese community. I mean, he might want a small market, but you can go to a smaller market and have more of the community and have Cleveland is a bottom 5 market in size. Like, I mean, I know there's the expandingness of it and this and that, but it's like a few years ago, I sat there and went through all of it. And it's like, if you look at like monetary impact, like GDP is like the big thing, but like average income times like the area, Cleveland is very small. I don't think he's going to want to come to one of the smallest markets that there is that does not have a strong one. It's got to be what, 3 left? I'll just double check that. 25, 26, 27, 3 years left for Kwan. Yeah. Yep. West Coast. Though I will say, I think actually San Diego doesn't make sense because San Diego's been very poor at pitcher development. So I would think Seattle would make more sense. So it's a little bit of a bigger market. It's maybe not there. Milwaukee could be a sleeper just in terms of like really good pitcher development. But yeah. I don't know him. I got to be honest. My knowledge of Cuba goes pretty low. Well, there goes one of the people that people thought they could be chasing. Evaldi back to Texas. Yeah, but Darvish is there, which maybe that's beneficial, but developing isn't there. They've been really bad. One of the worst at pitcher development. I mean, good chance LA. I mean, I'm very curious to see how it goes. This is, he's helping raise his profile. Like, I think it's going to take a while because we're all talking about him so much. Right now, every team is talking about Sasaki. The Brewers have a larger market, a larger stadium, arguably better pitcher development with some of the recent successes. They fixed Tobias Myers, who Cleveland gave up on. Milwaukee is, in fairness, I live in Milwaukee, but yeah, I think Milwaukee is actually I don't think they have much of a chance either. But going back to this, nope, that's not the one. I forgot I was going to say. I lost my thought. I mean, what happens if they already did? What happens if that was the Bieber money? I'm not saying it is, but like at the same time, they got better. Like they got better, and you're going to complain. It's not about the money as much as they got a good player who can hit. So many people all year complained, oh, they need to get hitters. They traded defense for offense, and now people are going to complain because they save money on it. Like, that's where I get frustrated. I don't think he makes a team on opening day, I got to be honest, just because he's been so unhealthy. Like, he's just not. He has missed so much time. I don't think anyone wants to pitch in a minor league park, though. It's the same reason like Tampa doesn't have a chance. And that's a bad park too. I mean, the first time I came to a game in Milwaukee, I was like blown away that there are people tailgating like it was a Browns game. Like, that's one of the amazing things here. And it's that nice like dome that opens and closes. Like, they sell out. It's really, it's an underrated city. I refuse to think that. His ceiling is so high. I can't believe that Espino is cooked. I can't. My heart won't let me believe that. If everything is going, I mean, I'll get myself in trouble with this, but he looked like DeGrom in the minors. He looked like a mini DeGrom, who also has had a ton of health issues. I can't say he's cooked. My heart won't let me. He did, but the data was also good enough. Like, he's a major league pitcher. That's more than anyone expected him to get. So I guess Texas found some extra money there. Sorry, I've been talking for a long time. I feel like I'm... Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and it's creativity. I wonder if, and this is what we talked about, like, the Guardians are open to trading Naylor and Thomas. Like, they're open to trading anyone. Like, no one had this coming. And that's how this team always operates. Like, they're not going to trade Naylor and Thomas because everyone's talking about them trading Naylor and Thomas. They are creative. I'm sure the call started with maybe even them calling about Horowitz, or maybe it was Toronto calling about Jimenez. And then it just, evolved from there. Well, I mean, they did trade prospects. That's how they did their trades at the deadline. So it's going to be, you can't just, you got to have two to tango, right? And they made those trades. Man, I hope you're right. You think? Alex Cobb got more than Shane Bieber. Again, I'm going to repeat, Alex Cobb got more than Shane Bieber. That's the crazy market. That's how you're better off trading. And it's like ignoring the health issues. And what kills a lot of teams with this, honestly, is like Baltimore is going to get a comp pick for Corbin Burns and for Santander. So they have 3 picks that are probably going to be in the top 35 picks. If they signed, I know, like Max Fried just signed, let's say they wanted to sign Sean Manaea. That would cost them like the 31st pick in the draft. Like, so teams, Evaldi was that guy who kind of gave you some ceiling, and you weren't risking losing a draft pick. Thomas was a great addition. That was a solid trade for this team. I mean, God, isn't he going to get more than that? Didn't Fried get like over 200, or am I wrong in that? Well, welcome, Blue Jays fan. See, I don't know anyone who's all the Blue Jays people I know are not happy. Every single one is unhappy right now. Every single Blue Jays person I know is unhappy. I've got people telling me 20 million a year is worth it for a 3-win player. I'm like, no. God, who would I target? Like, it's either the injured guys, or I'm going out and trying to sign someone. I think if you're, this is going to be in trouble, but I think if you're like flexible and smart and willing to look at things from all angles, you should be happy as a Guardians fan. Like a lot of rational people are, but the people who are rageaholics, which there are a lot, who want to sit back and be mad no matter what they do, like they're raging right now because that's what they always do. The same people who raged when they traded for Lane Thomas and gave up Alex Clemmy and Jose Tena, and those people rage now when you trade him. It's like no matter what they do, they're going to rage. There's just people who this is definitely a rageaholic fan base. Yeah, Freed does have like a lot of inconsistent injuries. And like, so what? Like he had 3 fun years. He's one of the best defenders you've ever seen. If you have a Jimenez jersey, then like it's still, you can wear that. Dude was an all-star for this team. Like it was 3 solid years. I can't say really good years because he kind of fell off a cliff, but like if you buy, I mean, I have only bought one jersey, and that was for Jose, and it was after he did his extension, just because the way baseball works. But I think that like in general, it's not like you bought, if you had one, it's not like or in Steven's case has 2 of them. I don't think it's, wear it, like enjoy the fun times. Remember the defensive wizardry. Like it's not like he's an X and you got to tear up the photo. He seems like a good dude who performed okay here. So like, be happy. I mean, he was healthy last year. It wasn't the arm. It was more the head. As well you should. Yeah. No reason not to. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, people who want to rage. And it's weird. Don't keep it in your closet. Wear it. As long, I won't miss him sliding headfirst into first. That's one of the things. I should probably be paying less attention to it. I mean, Justin Campbell is one of their top pitching prospects. Jacob Zibin coming up. They've had so many pitching arm injuries. It's going to be bad, man. It's going to be bad. I mean, arguably the best pitcher in my lifetime. Yeah, I mean, it's not a lot of guys. Brian, where you been? They got Spencer Horwitz, who's a really interesting guy who has hit in the minors. One of those guys who kind of, 4th round pick, was not ever huge thought of. Had a 127 weighted runs created plus last year. Gets on base at a good clip. Doesn't chase. Has, average to below average power, but is a excellent command of the zone. Plays first and second. Had 127 weighted runs created plus last year in about 100 games. That had been 4th best on the Guardians. And Nick Mitchell, who was a 4th round pick who got $470,000, who played at Indiana, young for his class, who's an interesting young prospect. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, he was a fun player. We have no reason to dislike him or not root for him. If he performs well for Toronto, great. Hopefully both guys perform well. I'm not going to root against him just because he's here just to make the trade look better. Like, hopefully both teams walk away saying we won this trade. Like, I got no problem. Like, I like Gimme. I want him to perform well. I want both teams to win this trade. I don't want someone to, I don't want him to fall apart. Horowitz, top of my head, I'm trying to remember. I think I said he was like a 143 against right-handers and weighted runs created plus, a 53 against lefties. He is a platoon guy, but Jimenez was a 93 against righties and a 65 against lefties. So he's below 100 in both. So yeah, there's that side of it. And I mean, it felt like Gimme to have a good week and the 3 bad ones. It was just hard. And there's this. Like, I know people bring up like the Junior Caminero deal, other ones like this, but most of their trades are like an 80% success rate. Like if we go back, okay, so the Will Benson trade, probably are going to get nothing from it. So they'll lose that one by default. Nolan Jones has still got a chance to win that trade. Like we tend to rush too much. Hey, no problem. It's an interesting return. I didn't think they'd get anything at all, honestly. To get a useful player and guy's not a top 30 prospect, but is interesting. I think that's a pretty good return. But you got to be honest. Speaking of returns, I think I appreciate everyone who came in and joined us, but like I think I got to call it an evening just so I can rest the vocals a bit before I have to record with Justin in like another hour and a half. Okay, so it didn't work out, but I also don't think they would have let Yainer catch on this team with the way that they want their catchers to do things. And that's the other side of it. Yeah, they lost that one as well. But yeah, I got to rest my voice a little bit because it's a full day of teaching and then talking for 2.5 hours. So I hope I answered most everyone's questions. I hope you all had a great night. Thank you all for joining me and interacting. With Justin couldn't make it. I was a little bit afraid when the early numbers were low. So thank you all for joining me. I hope you had fun. You can follow me on Twitter at JeffMLB Draft. Same thing over on Blue Sky. Make sure to check out the show. Thank you all and go Guardians, go.